The war had been going on for 107 years. 107 years of death, destruction, and defeat. The Galactic Coalition, an alliance of 12 different alien species, had fought against the Veth Dominion with everything they had. They had sent their best ships. They had sacrificed their bravest soldiers. They had spent enough resources to build entire planets. And still, they were losing. The Veth were relentless. Their ships came in endless waves, like a dark ocean that never stopped rising. Every time the Coalition destroyed one fleet, 2 more would appear. Every time they defended a star system, 3 others would fall. The war had become a slow death, and everyone knew it. On a small diplomatic station called Horizon's Edge, far from the front lines, Ambassador Una of Earth sat alone in her office. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Through her window, she could see distant stars twinkling in the endless black void. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were dying in a war that seemed to have no end. Una was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and tired lines around her eyes. She had been Earth's representative to the Coalition for 15 years. In that time, she had watched the war grow worse and worse. She had attended hundreds of meetings where desperate alien leaders begged for help. And every time she had given the same answer: Earth would not join the war. It was not her decision, of course. The order came from the United Earth Council back home. Humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition 30 years ago, shortly after they discovered faster-than-light travel. But joining the Coalition did not mean joining its war. Earth had declared itself neutral, and neutral it had remained. The door to her office lit open, and Admiral Taiho walked in. He was a tall man in his 60s, with a shaved head and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's Interstellar Navy, though the Navy had never fired a shot in anger. "You look tired," Taiho said, sitting down across from her. "I am tired," Una replied. "I just finished reading the latest battle reports. The Veth took the Rin system yesterday. 40 million dead. The Coalition fleet retreated without destroying a single enemy ship." Taiho nodded slowly. His expression did not change. "And the Coalition leadership? What do they say?" "What they always say. They want us to help. They say humanity has the largest untested military in the galaxy. They say our technology is different from anything they have seen. They say we could turn the tide of the war." "And what did you tell them?" Una sighed and leaned back in her chair. "I told them what I always tell them. Earth is not ready. We do not understand galactic warfare. We would be sending our people to die for nothing." For a long moment, Taiho said nothing. He simply looked at her with those cold, steady eyes. Then, very quietly, he spoke. "You know that is not true." Una met his gaze. Of course, she knew. She had known for years. The story about Earth not being ready was exactly that, a story. A lie told to buy time. The truth was something else entirely. Earth had been watching the war from the beginning. Not just watching, but studying. Every battle, every strategy, every weapon, every mistake humanity had recorded and analyzed all of it. Earth's military scientists had spent decades learning how galactic warfare worked. And more importantly, they had spent decades figuring out how to break it. "The Council still says no," Una said quietly. "They say the time is not right." "The time is never right for war," Taiho replied. "But sometimes war comes anyway. And when it does, it is better to be ready." He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, a Coalition supply ship was docking at the station. It was old and damaged, barely holding together. A symbol of an alliance that was slowly falling apart. "I have been a soldier for 40 years, Taiho said. "I have studied every war in human history. Every battle, every campaign, every victory and defeat. Do you know what I have learned? Yuna shook her head. I have learned that there are two kinds of warfare. The first kind is what the coalition practices. It is orderly. It is honorable. Fleets meet in open space and fight according to rules that both sides agree on. Prisoners are taken. Civilians are spared. Wars last for generations because neither side is willing to do what is necessary to end them. He turned to face her, and for the first time, Yuna saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. It was not anger. It was not hatred. It was something far more dangerous, Dot. It was certainty. The second kind of warfare is what humans do, Taiho continued. We do not fight for honor. We do not follow rules. We fight to win. And when we fight to win, we do not stop until the enemy cannot fight anymore. Not will not fight. Cannot fight. There's a difference. Yuna understood what he was saying. She had always understood. The coalition species saw war as a kind of brutal sport, a test of strength between civilizations. But humans did not see war that way. Humans saw war as a problem to be solved. And humans were very, very good at solving problems. The Council is afraid, Yuna said. They are afraid that if we show the galaxy what we can do, they will fear us forever. Taiho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They should fear us. Fear keeps the peace better than any treaty. Fear lasts longer than any alliance. He walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at her. Tell the Council that the Veth will reach Coalition Core in 6 months. After that, they will come for Earth. And when they do, it will not matter if we are ready or not. The war will come to us. The door slid closed behind him, leaving Yuna alone with her thoughts. She looked out at the stars again, at the vast and violent galaxy that had somehow become her responsibility. Somewhere deep in her heart, she knew the truth. Earth would join the war. It was only a matter of time. And when that happened, the galaxy would learn what humans were truly capable of. She was not sure if that thought comforted her or terrified her. Perhaps it was both. The Coalition's Supreme Commander arrived at Earth's embassy 3 weeks later. His name was Prahl, and he was the last hope of a dying alliance. Prahl belonged to a species called the Kreeth. They were tall insectoid beings with hard shells and compound eyes that could see in all directions at once. Prahl himself stood nearly 3 meters tall, his dark green carapace scarred from decades of war. He had led the Coalition military for 30 years, and in that time, he had watched his forces shrink from 10 million ships to less than 200,000. He came to Earth's embassy with the leaders of 7 other Coalition species. They were all that remained of the Alliance's high command. The others had either died in battle or fled to distant systems. Hoping to escape the Veth's advanced ambassador Yuna met them in the embassy's main conference room. Admiral Taiho stood beside her, along with Captain Mina, the head of Earth's strategic division. Mina was young for her position, only 42 years old, but she had a sharp mind and a reputation for seeing things that others missed. Prahl did not waste time with pleasantries. His species did not believe in them. The Veth have broken through our defensive line at Sector 7, he said, his voice clicking and buzzing as his translator converted it to human speech. Our fleet there has been destroyed. 80,000 ships lost in a single battle. Coalition Core is now undefended. The room was silent. Coalition Core was the heart of the Alliance, a system of 12 inhabited planets where most of the Coalition's remaining population lived. If it fell, the war would be over. How long do you have? Yuna asked. 6 months? Perhaps less. The Veth are already moving their invasion fleet into position. Prahl's compound eyes turned to face Yuna directly. Despite having no expression that humans could read, His body language radiated desperation. "You must help us," he said. "You are our last hope. Your fleet has never been tested in battle, but we know it is large. We know your technology is different from ours. We have heard rumors of weapons that we do not understand. If you join us now, together we might be able to stop the Veth advance." Yuna opened her mouth to give the same answer she had given 100 times before. But before she could speak, Captain Mina stepped forward. "Commander Prowl," Mina said, her voice calm and measured. "May I ask you a question?" Prowl's antennae twitched with surprise. In Coalition culture, junior officers did not speak during high-level meetings. But he nodded slowly. "How do your fleets fight the Veth?" Prowl seemed confused by the question. "We fight as all civilized species fight. Our fleets meet in open space. We form battle lines. We exchange fire until one side retreats or is destroyed. It is the way war has been conducted in this galaxy for 10,000 years." Mina nodded. "And before each battle, do you send warnings? Do you tell the Veth where and when you will attack?" "Of course. It is honorable to give your enemy time to prepare. A victory won through surprise is no victory at all." "And what about civilian targets? Supply ships? Communication stations? Do you attack those?" Prowl made a sound that his translator rendered as disgust. "Never. Those are not military targets. Attacking them would be dishonorable. Even the Veth do not sink so low." Mina turned to look at Ambassador Yuna and Admiral Taiho. Something passed between them. A silent understanding that had been building for years. "Commander," Mina said, turning back to Prowl, "I have studied your war for 15 years. I have watched every major battle. I have analyzed every strategy your fleets have used. And I have come to a conclusion." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft but absolutely certain. "You are not fighting a war. You are playing a game. A game with rules that both sides agreed to follow. And that is why you are losing." Prowl's antennae stood straight up, a sign of great offense among his people. "You dare insult our warriors? They have given their lives by the billions for this cause." "I am not insulting anyone," Mina replied calmly. "I am stating a fact. Your warriors are brave. Your commanders are skilled. But you have been fighting the wrong way. You have been trying to defeat the Veth on their terms, following rules that only help them. Real war has no rules. Real war is about one thing only: making sure your enemy cannot fight anymore." She walked to the conference table and activated a holographic display. It showed a map of Veth territory, hundreds of star systems spread across a quarter of the galaxy. "You have been attacking their fleets," Mina said. "That is a mistake. Fleets can be rebuilt. Soldiers can be replaced. But if you destroy an enemy's ability to build fleets and train soldiers, then it does not matter how brave they are. They will lose." Prowl stared at the map, his compound eyes flickering as he tried to understand what she was saying. "What are you suggesting?" Mina smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not kind either. It was the smile of someone who had already planned everything and was simply waiting for the right moment. "I am suggesting that you let us handle this. Not as your allies. Not as your support. Let us handle the entire war our way." "And what is your way?" Mina looked at Admiral Taiho, who nodded once. "Our way," she said, "is to win. Completely, permanently, and as quickly as possible." Prowl was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been on every coalition leader's mind for 30 years. "If you could have helped us all along, why did you wait? Why did you let so many die?" Ambassador Yuna answered this time, her voice heavy with something that might have been guilt. "Because once you see what we can do, you will never look at humanity the same way again. And we were not sure the galaxy was ready for that truth. She met Prall's compound eyes directly. But now there is no more time. The Veth are coming, and they will not stop with the coalition. So we will do what must be done. And afterward, the galaxy will have to decide whether to thank us or fear us. Prall looked at the humans before him. They were small, soft, fragile-looking creatures. Nothing about them seemed dangerous. And yet, for the first time in his long life, the Supreme Commander of the Galactic Coalition felt something he had not felt since he was a young soldier facing his first battle. He felt afraid. "What do you need from us?" He asked quietly. "Nothing," Admiral Taiho replied. "Just stay out of our way, and do not interfere, no matter what you see." He stood up and walked toward the door. "The war will be over in 3 hours." At exactly 6 o'clock in the morning, Galactic Standard Time, humanity went to war. There was no announcement, no declaration, no warning sent to the enemy. One moment, the Veth Dominion was preparing for another easy victory against the broken coalition. The next moment, everything they had built over 1,000 years began to fall apart. Lieutenant Jisoo sat in the command chair of the stealth carrier, Silent Dawn. The ship was completely invisible to every sensor the Veth possessed. It hung in space like a ghost, surrounded by 300 identical vessels, all waiting for the signal. Jisoo was 31 years old. She had trained her entire adult life for this moment. Every simulation, every exercise, every sleepless night studying enemy tactics had led to this. And now, as the clock ticked toward 0 hour, she felt strangely calm. Her orders were simple. Do not engage enemy warships. Do not fight any battles. Instead, destroy every fuel depot in the target zone. Without fuel, the mighty Veth war fleet would become nothing more than floating metal. "All ships report ready," her communications officer said. Jisoo took a deep breath. "Begin the operation." Across 14 star systems, spread over thousands of light years, human forces struck at the same instant. They did not attack the Veth fleets that guarded each system. They ignored those fleets entirely, slipping past them like shadows in the night. Instead, they targeted the fuel reserves that kept those fleets running in the first 30 minutes. 847 Veth supply depots exploded into fire. Billions of tons of fuel, enough to power 1,000,000 warships for a century, vanished in moments. The Veth commanders did not even realize what was happening until it was too late. By the time they turned their sensors toward the depots, there was nothing left but debris. On a moon orbiting the Veth homeworld, Sergeant Dohan led a team of 12 soldiers through dark tunnels beneath the surface. They wore suits that made them invisible to infrared, ultraviolet, and electronic detection. They moved in perfect silence, communicating only through hand signals. Their target was not soldiers or weapons. Their target was water. The Veth were an aquatic species. They needed to drink 3 times as much water as humans, and their food could only be grown in water-rich environments. The moon they were on held the central water purification plant for the entire Veth military. Every drop of clean water that Veth soldiers drank passed through this facility. Dohan and his team did not destroy the facility. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they released a specially designed biological agent into the water supply. It was not deadly. It would not kill anyone, but it would make the water taste so terrible that no Veth could drink it. And more importantly, it would take months to remove from the purification system stopped by the time the Veth discovered the contamination. 3 billion of their soldiers would be suffering from dehydration. An army that cannot drink, cannot fight. In a secret bunker deep beneath Earth's surface, Major Sujin commanded the Information Warfare Division. She was surrounded by hundreds of technicians, each one monitoring screens, filled with data streams that flowed like rivers of light. Sujin was not a soldier in the traditional sense. She had never fired a weapon or led troops into battle. But in this war, She was perhaps the most dangerous person alive. Phase 2 is ready, one of her technicians reported. We have full access to Veth communication networks. Begin broadcasting false orders, Sujin commanded. Within minutes, chaos spread through the Veth military like a disease. Commanders received orders that seemed to come from their superiors, but actually came from Sujin's bunker. Some orders told fleets to retreat from vital positions. Others told fleets to attack each other. Still others told supply ships to dump their cargo into space. The Veth had no way to know which orders were real and which were fake. Their communication codes had been broken years ago by human cryptographers, and they had never suspected it. Now, that ignorance was destroying them. In one system, 2 Veth fleets opened fire on each other, each believing the other had been taken over by traitors. Thousands of ships destroyed each other while human observers watched from a safe distance. In another system, a Veth admiral received an order to surrender to a coalition fleet that did not exist. He followed the order, powering down his weapons and shields. Human ships appeared moments later and destroyed his entire fleet before he could react. Back on the coalition diplomatic station, Supreme Commander Prahl watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. His compound eyes could not cry, but if they could, he would have been weeping. "This is not possible," he whispered. "In 1 hour, they have done more damage than we did in a century." Ambassador Yuna stood beside him, her face showing no emotion. "We are not finished yet. What more can there be? Watch." On the Veth homeworld in the capital city of their ancient empire, alarms suddenly began to sound. The power grid flickered and died. Emergency systems tried to activate but failed. In the great palace where the Veth Emperor lived, lights went out and doors sealed shut. Somewhere in that darkness, human special forces teams were moving. They had infiltrated the planet weeks before the war even started, waiting patiently for this moment. Now, they began their work. They did not kill the Emperor. They did not need to. Instead, they captured him and every member of his war council. They recorded videos of these leaders confessing to crimes they had never committed, admitting to defeats that had never happened, ordering surrenders that contradicted everything they believed. These videos would be broadcast across the Dominion within hours. The Veth people would see their emperor broken and defeated, telling them the war was lost. It would not matter that the confessions were forced. The damage to morale would be done. Lieutenant Jisoo watched from her command chair as the fuel depot she had targeted finally stopped burning. Around her, reports were coming in from every theater of the war. Everything was going according to plan. Phase 1 complete, she reported to command. All primary targets destroyed. No human casualties. No enemy engagements. From the bunker on Earth, Admiral Taiho's voice came back calm and steady. Proceed to Phase 2. Remember, our goal is not to destroy the enemy. Our goal is to make them unable to fight. There's a difference. Jisoo nodded, even though Taiho could not see her. She understood the difference. Killing an enemy was easy. Breaking their ability to resist was hard. But that was what humans did. They did not fight battles. They won wars. 1 hour down. 2 hours to go. The Veth Dominion did not know it yet, but they had already lost. They just needed time to realize it. By the 2nd hour, the Veth Dominion was falling apart from the inside. Captain Hai Jin commanded a squadron of fast attack ships near the Veth Third Fleet, the largest concentration of enemy warships in the galaxy. Her orders were strange, but she followed them without question. "Do not destroy the flagship," Admiral Taiho had told her. "Disable it." Then wait. Haijin had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Her ships were equipped with weapons the Veth had never seen before. They did not fire lasers or missiles. Instead, they fired concentrated electromagnetic pulses that could shut down any electrical system within range. The Veth flagship was called the Eternal Tide. It was a massive vessel, 5 kilometers long, carrying enough firepower to destroy a planet. 30,000 crew members lived aboard it, including High Admiral Korth, the most decorated warrior in Veth history. Hyjin's squadron struck without warning. They came out of stealth for exactly 3 seconds, fired their weapons, and vanished again. The Eternal Tide shields did nothing. The electromagnetic pulse passed right through them and hit the ship's core systems. Every light on the flagship went dark. Every engine stopped. Every weapon powered down. And most importantly, the life support systems began to fail. Hyjin watched from a safe distance as emergency lights flickered on inside the Eternal Tide. She could imagine the chaos inside. 30,000 Veth suddenly finding themselves in the dark, their air slowly running out, their distress signals going unanswered. The High Admiral is broadcasting a distress call, her communications officer reported. Let me see it. The screen showed High Admiral Korth, a massive Veth with a shell covered in golden decorations. He was speaking rapidly, desperately, calling for any nearby ships to come to his rescue. Shall I jam the signal? The communications officer asked. No, Hyjin replied with a thin smile. Let him call for help, but redirect any responses to these coordinates. She entered a set of numbers into her console. The coordinates led to a region of space that human forces had filled with thousands of hidden mines. Any ship that went there would be destroyed before it could react. Within 30 minutes, 12 Veth rescue ships had been blown apart. The rest stopped coming. The High Admiral's distress calls grew more frantic, then quieter, then stopped entirely. The life support on the Eternal Tide would last another 4 hours. After that, 30,000 Veth would die, not from human weapons, but from their own failing ship. It was not a noble death. It was not a warrior's death. But it was effective. On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Junho led the Cyber Warfare Division's most ambitious operation. His target was not ships or soldiers. His target was money. The Veth military, like all militaries, ran on funding. Soldiers needed to be paid. Supplies needed to be purchased. Ships needed to be maintained. And all of that required a functioning financial system. Junho and his team had spent years preparing for this moment. They had mapped every connection in the Veth banking network. They had planted hidden programs in their financial systems. And now, with a single command, they activated those programs. In an instant, every military payroll account in the Veth Dominion was emptied. Billions of soldiers found their accounts showing zero balance. Officers who had been promised bonuses for victory discovered that their money had vanished. Supply contracts worth trillions were canceled without explanation. The effect was immediate. On dozens of Veth military bases, soldiers who had been preparing for battle simply stopped. They began arguing with their commanders, demanding to know where their pay had gone. Some refused to follow orders until they were paid. Others abandoned their posts entirely. An army that is not paid is not an army. It is a mob. Back on the coalition station, Supreme Commander Prahl watched the reports with growing disbelief. He had fought the Veth for 30 years. He had lost millions of ships and billions of soldiers trying to stop their advance. And now, in less than 2 hours, humans had brought the Dominion to its knees without fighting a single major battle. I do not understand, he said to Ambassador Yuna. Your ships have barely engaged their fleets. How are you winning? Yuna turned to face him. Her expression was neither proud nor ashamed. It was simply matter of fact, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. Because we are not trying to defeat their fleets. We are trying to defeat their civilization. Ships can be rebuilt. Soldiers can be replaced. But trust, morale, economy, communication, leadership, these things take generations to build. Destroy them, and the enemy collapses from within. She gestured to the tactical display, which showed Veth systems falling one by one. Not falling to invasion, falling to chaos. Your coalition fought the Veth the way they expected to be fought. You met them in honorable battle, where their strength could be used against you. But we do not fight that way. We find what the enemy needs to survive, and we take it away. We find what they fear most, and we make it happen. We do not destroy armies. We destroy the ability to have armies. Prahl was silent for a long moment. Then he asked a question that had been forming in his mind since the war began. Are all humans like this? Una smiled sadly. No. Most humans are kind, peaceful people who want nothing more than to live their lives in happiness. But when we are threatened, when our survival is at stake, we become something else. Something that even we do not fully understand. She looked at the display, where Veth territory was shrinking by the minute. There is an old saying on Earth, if you want peace, prepare for war. Humans have been preparing for war for 10,000 years. Every generation, we have found new ways to fight, new ways to kill, new ways to win. Not because we enjoy it, but because we had to. Because in our history, the civilizations that could not fight did not survive. She turned back to Prahl, and her eyes were hard. The Veth, they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They were wrong. They were playing at war. We have been living it since before we discovered fire. And now, they are learning the difference. On the screen, another Veth stronghold went dark. Its defenders had surrendered, not because they were defeated in battle, but because they had no food, no water, no communication with their leaders, and no reason to keep fighting. 1 hour left. The Veth Dominion was dying, and it did not even know how to stop the bleeding. At exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, Galactic Standard Time, the Veth Dominion surrendered unconditionally. The announcement came from a Veth admiral named Tresh, the highest-ranking officer still able to communicate with the outside galaxy. His voice was broken, his words slow and heavy with defeat. To all Veth forces everywhere, this is Admiral Tresh. I am ordering an immediate cease of all military operations. The war is over. We have lost. Lay down your weapons and await further instructions. Do not resist the humans. Resistance is pointless. Across the galaxy, Veth soldiers received this message and simply stopped fighting. There was no argument, no final desperate stand, no attempt to continue the struggle. They stopped because they had nothing left to fight with. Their fleets floated dead in space, engines cold, fuel tanks empty. Their armies stood silent on 100 worlds, hungry and thirsty, unable to contact their commanders. Their economy had collapsed. Their leadership had been captured or killed. Their communication networks broadcast only confusion and false information. In 3 hours, humanity had done what the Galactic Coalition could not do in 107 years. They had ended the war. On the Coalition station, Supreme Commander Prahl received the surrender message in stunned silence. Around him, the leaders of 7 alien species stared at their screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. It is over, one of them whispered. It is actually over. Prahl turned to Ambassador Una, who stood quietly in the corner of the room. Her face showed no celebration, no joy, no pride. She looked tired, like someone who had just finished a difficult task that she had never wanted to do. How? Prahl asked. How is this possible? Una did not answer immediately. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars, the same stars she had watched for so many years while the galaxy burned. We did not beat the Veth in battle, she said finally. We made it impossible for them to fight. We took away their fuel, their water, their money, their leaders, their ability to communicate. We turned their own systems against them. We broke their will to resist before they even understood what was happening. She turned to face him. That is how humans fight. Not to win battles, but to win wars. Not to defeat enemies, but to make enemies unable to exist. It is not honorable. It is not noble. But it works. 1 week later, Admiral Taiho addressed the full assembly of the Galactic Coalition. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Hall, all of them watching the human with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "The war is over," Taiho said, his voice calm and steady. "The Veth Dominion has been dissolved. Their military has been dismantled. Their leaders have been removed from power. They will never threaten the coalition again." He paused, looking around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. "I know what you are thinking. You are grateful that we ended the war. But you are also afraid. You are asking yourselves, if humans could do this to the Veth, what could they do to us?" The room was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. "That is a fair question," Taiho continued. "And I will answer it honestly. Yes, we could do the same to any of you. We have the ability to destroy any civilization in this galaxy, not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding of how civilizations work and how they fail." He let those words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. "But we do not want to. We never wanted to fight this war. We stayed neutral for 30 years because we hoped another solution could be found. We joined the war only when there was no other choice." He stepped closer to the assembly, his eyes moving from face to face. "Earth wants peace. We want trade. We want cooperation. We want to explore the galaxy and discover its wonders together with you. But we also want you to understand something very clearly." His voice grew harder. "Do not threaten humanity. Do not attack our worlds. Do not harm our people. Because if you do, we will not send fleets to meet you in honorable battle. We will find everything you need to survive: your food, your water, your economy, your leaders, your hope, and we will take it all away. You will not even see us coming. And by the time you realize what is happening, it will be too late." He stepped back and allowed his voice to soften. "We do not say this as a threat. We say it as a truth. Humanity would rather be your friend than your enemy. But if we must be your enemy, we will be the last enemy you ever have." The assembly remained silent long after he finished speaking. In the months that followed, the galaxy slowly returned to normal. Trade routes reopened. Refugees returned to their homes. The wounds of a century of war began to heal. But things were different now. The balance of power had shifted in ways that could never be undone. Captain Mina, now promoted to admiral, wrote in her personal log 6 months after the war ended, "The galaxy knows what we are now. For 30 years, they thought we were cowards hiding behind neutrality. They thought we were too weak or too afraid to join their war. They did not understand that we were never hiding from the war. We were preparing for a and now they understand. They understand that when humans fight, we do not fight for glory or honor or territory. We fight to end the fighting, permanently. Some of them hate us for what we did. Some of them fear us. A few of them respect us. But none of them will ever underestimate us again. Is that a good thing? I do not know. I hope that we never have to fight another war. I hope that the example we made of the Veth will be enough to keep the peace for centuries. But if it is not, if another threat rises against humanity, or against those we have sworn to protect, then we will do what we have always done. We will win, and the galaxy will remember why they should have let us sleep." The stars continued to shine, cold and eternal, as they had for billions of years before humans ever looked up at them. But now, among those stars, a new truth had been written in the history of the galaxy. Humanity was awake, and the universe would never be the same.